Commander Tay stared out the viewport of his small scout vessel, watching the stars drift by in their cold brilliance. The silence of deep space pressed in around him, broken only by the occasional beep of failing systems and the soft hiss of air recyclers working overtime. It had been 3 days since the gravitational anomaly had torn through his ship, destroying his engine core and communications array. "Warning, life support at 67% capacity," announced the ship's computer in its flat, emotionless tone. Tay nodded to himself. The Crystalline Confederacy built their ships to last, but even their advanced technology couldn't overcome the fundamental problems of a critical power failure in deep space. He had maybe 7 days left before the oxygen recyclers failed completely. He tapped the emergency beacon again, knowing it was futile. The signal was too weak to reach far beyond this empty sector, and even if it did, no help would come. His people weren't cruel, just logical to a fault. The Confederacy's response protocol was clear. No rescue missions would be authorized if the probability of success fell below 78.3% or if the resource expenditure exceeded the calculated value of the personnel and equipment to be recovered. Tay had run the numbers himself. In this remote sector, his value as a scout commander didn't justify the fuel and risk required for a rescue mission. It was simple mathematics, the backbone of crystalline society. "I understand the logic," he whispered to the empty cabin, "but it doesn't make dying alone any easier." The ship drifted silently through an asteroid field, small rocks occasionally, pinging against the hull. Tay had managed to stabilize the vessel's rotation after the accident, but without engine power, he was at the mercy of physics and fate. His current trajectory would eventually carry him toward the nearest star system, but he'd be long dead before reaching it. Tay made his way to the supply cabinet, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the dim emergency lights as he moved. The cabinet contained 7 nutrient packs, enough for a standard week. He took one out and inserted it into his feeding port, watching the pink liquid drain into his system. The Crystalline Confederacy had evolved over thousands of years into one of the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy. Their crystalline biology allowed them to survive extreme conditions, but even they couldn't survive without oxygen and nutrients. Tai's people valued efficiency above all else. It had built their empire across 12 star systems. That same efficiency now condemned him to die. He returned to the command chair and reviewed the ship's damage reports for the 100th time, searching for some solution he might have missed. The gravitational anomaly had appeared from nowhere, something not recorded in any Confederacy charts. His sensors had barely registered it before it hit, crushing the engine compartment and sending critical systems into cascade failure. "If only I'd reacted faster," Tay muttered, though he knew even the quickest reflexes couldn't have saved him. The anomaly had defied all known physics. For hours he tried rerouting power systems, attempting to boost his distress signal or squeeze a few more days from the life support. Nothing worked. The damage was too severe. On the 4th day, as Tai was entering his hibernation cycle to conserve oxygen, something unexpected happened. The ship's proximity alarm sounded, jolting him fully awake. Proximity alert. Unknown object. Approaching from Vector 22743, Tai scrambled to the sensor console. Something was out there, something big. At first he thought it might be another asteroid, but the object's movement was too deliberate, too controlled. Computer, analyze approaching object. Analysis complete. Object appears to be an artificial construction. Configuration unknown. Not matching any Crystalline Confederacy designs or any other species in database. Hope and fear battled within Tai's mind. The unknown vessel could be help, or it could be the notoriously territorial scavengers who prowled the edges of civilized space, stripping damaged ships and selling the crews to mining operations. The ship grew larger on his view screen. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen before, asymmetrical in places, with odd protrusions and what appeared to be manually operated docking bays. It lacked the perfect geometric precision of Confederacy vessels, yet moved with surprising grace for its bulky appearance. "Incoming transmission," announced the computer. "Play it," Tay ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The transmission came through broken and static-filled. His translator struggled to process the unfamiliar. Language patterns converting perhaps one word in three. Distress, assistance, respond if, here. Tay frantically worked the communications panel, trying to boost the signal strength with his remaining power. This is Scout Commander Tay of the Crystalline Confederacy vessel Precision. My ship is critically damaged. Life support failing. I require immediate assistance. For long moments there was silence. Then the transmission returned, clearer this time as the other ship drew closer. Commander Tay, this is Captain Han of the Earth vessel Persistence. We've received your distress call. Prepare for rescue operations. We're sending a shuttle to dock with your vessel. Earth vessel? Tay searched his memory for information about Earth. The species was mentioned only briefly in Confederacy records. A young, unpredictable race from a backwater system. They weren't known for deep space travel, certainly not this far from their homeworld. Through the viewport, Tay watched as a small shuttle launched from the larger ship and approached his damaged vessel. The shuttle's design was even stranger up close, clearly built for functionality rather than efficiency, with visible welding seams and irregularly placed thruster ports. The computer announced, "Alert! Unknown vessel attempting docking procedures." Tay hesitated only briefly before authorizing the connection. Death was certain without help. Whatever these humans wanted, they were his only chance. The docking clamps engaged with a shudder that ran through his entire ship. Air pressure stabilized, and Tay heard the mechanical sounds of the airlock cycling. His inner eyelids flickered, nervously as he waited by the inner door, not knowing what to expect. The airlock hissed open, and Tay found himself face to face with creatures he'd never seen before. They were bipedal, with soft-looking exteriors and no visible crystalline elements. Two of them wore bulky environmental suits, but their faceplates were transparent, revealing pink-toned skin and hair in various colors. "Commander Tay?" asked the foremost creature in slightly accented but understandable common trade language. "I'm Captain Han. We're here to help." Tay stared at the humans in stunned silence. Their appearance was so unlike the crystalline structure of his own people. Soft, rounded features with eyes that seemed to shine with something beyond mere biological function. Captain Han removed his helmet completely, revealing short black hair and a face marked with tiny creases around the eyes and mouth. "Can you understand me?" Han asked, taking a step forward. Tay regained his composure. "Yes. My translator functions adequately, but I don't understand why you're here. This sector is far from any human territory." A second human removed her helmet, revealing herself as slightly shorter than Han, with hair pulled back tightly. "I'm Engineer Ju," she said, immediately pulling out a handheld device and scanning the ship's damaged systems. "Your life support is pretty much toast. We need to move quickly." "We picked up your distress signal 3 days ago," Han explained, his eyes scanning the damaged ship with obvious curiosity. "We were mapping uncharted space when we detected it. Weak signal, but clear enough to tell someone was in trouble." Tay's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of confusion in his species. "You altered your mission parameters to investigate a distress signal from an unknown source." Han seemed puzzled by the question. "Of course we did. That's what you do when someone needs help." The third human, still helmeted, called from the airlock. "Captain, this whole section is losing pressure fast. We've got maybe 20 minutes before structural integrity fails completely." "Understood, Kang Ju. Help Commander Tay gather any essential items. We're leaving in 15. Tay watched in amazement as the humans moved with practiced efficiency, but not the cold, calculated efficiency of his people. They worked together with a rhythm that seemed almost chaotic, yet somehow perfectly coordinated, calling out to each other, sometimes even talking over one another. "Your personal items, Ju," reminded him, gesturing around the cabin. "Anything you want to bring?" Tay hesitated. "There's nothing of personal value, just mission data." He pointed to a crystal storage device embedded in the main console. Ju nodded and quickly extracted the device with surprising skill. "Got it. Anything else? Mementos? Family? Images?" "We don't keep such things," Tay replied, finding the concept strange. "All personal experiences are uploaded to the collective memory upon mission completion." Something flashed across Ju's face. "Pity, perhaps?" Tay wasn't certain. His species rarely displayed emotions so visibly. "Captain," called the helmeted human named Kang, "that gravitational anomaly is showing up on scanners again. It's weak, but growing. We should move now." Han nodded sharply. "Time to go. Commander Tay, please come with us." Tay followed the humans, through the airlock and into their shuttle. The interior was nothing like the sleek, minimalist design of crystalline vessels. Every surface seemed covered with buttons, switches, and screens. Cables were bundled along the ceiling, and the seats looked worn from use. "Strap in," Han ordered, taking the pilot's position. "This might get bumpy." Ju helped Tay with the unfamiliar harness system. The fabric felt strange against his crystalline exoskeleton, another reminder of how different these humans were. Through the viewport, Tay watched his ship for what he knew would be the last time. The elegant scout vessel had been his home for 3 standard years. Now it would become space debris, another piece of cosmic dust. "Disengaging docking clamps," Kang announced. "We're clear." The shuttle pulled away, just as a visible wave of distortion rippled through space. The gravitational anomaly was returning. "Full thrusters," Han shouted, his hands flying over the controls. The shuttle lurched forward with surprising speed, rattling Tay in his seat. "What is that thing?" Ju asked, looking at the readings on her screen. "Unknown," Tay replied. "It appeared without warning 4 days ago. Our scientists have theorized about spatial fractures in this region, but never documented one before." The shuttle rocked violently as the edge of the anomaly caught them. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Stabilizers failing," Kang reported. "Port thruster down to 60%. Han's face showed intense concentration, not fear. His hands moved across the controls with remarkable precision, making adjustments that seemed to anticipate the anomaly's effects. "Hang on," he called out, throwing the shuttle into a spinning dive that somehow slipped them through the weakest part of the gravitational distortion. Tay felt his crystalline structure vibrate dangerously close to its resonance frequency. Had they remained caught in the anomaly much longer, he might have shattered from within. After what seemed like an eternity of violent maneuvering, the shuttle broke free. Through the viewport, Tay saw the massive human ship, the Persistence, growing larger. "This is Shuttle 1, Han reported into his communication device. "We've got him. 1 passenger, Commander Tay of the Crystalline Confederacy. Prepare medical bay for potential crystalline structural damage." "Medical bay?" Tay asked, surprised again. "I don't require medical attention." Ju gave him a gentle smile. "Standard protocol. Everyone gets checked after a rescue, especially after exposure to unknown phenomena." The shuttle docked smoothly with the larger ship. As the airlock cycled, Tay heard sounds unlike anything on a crystalline vessel, voices calling back and forth, laughter, even what sounded like music in the distance. When the door opened, Tay stepped into a world of sensory overload. The Persistence's interior was even more chaotic than the shuttle. Humans moved about purposefully, but their movements lacked the precise, efficient paths of his people. They took detours to speak to one another. They grouped together, seemingly without functional purpose. Some even touched shoulders or hands as they passed. "Welcome aboard the Persistence, Commander," said a tall human waiting just inside. "I'm Chief Medical Officer Kim. If you'll follow me, we'll make sure you're in one piece after that rough ride." Tay followed, becoming aware of the stares from passing crew members. Many had likely never seen a crystalline before. Their gazes held no malice, only curiosity. "Captain," Tay said, turning back to Han, "I still don't understand. You risked your vessel and crew for an unknown alien. By what calculation did this make sense?" Han's expression softened. "Some things you don't calculate, Commander. Some things you just do because they're right." As Tay followed the medical officer deeper into the ship, those words echoed in his mind, a concept both alien and strangely compelling. The medical bay of the Persistence was unlike any healing chamber Tay had ever seen. Instead of the sterile white pods used by the Confederacy, the humans had created a space filled with colorful monitoring equipment, beds with actual fabric coverings, and walls decorated with images of landscapes from what Tay assumed was Earth. "Chief," Medical Officer Kim guided Tay to a scanning platform. Please stand here, Commander. This won't hurt a bit. A blue light passed over Tay's crystalline form. He noticed how Dr. Kim's eyes widened slightly at the readings. Fascinating, the doctor murmured. Your molecular structure is silicon-based, but with a crystalline lattice that's self-repairing. He looked up at Tay. You have microfractures throughout your outer shell. Nothing critical, but they need attention. Tay was surprised at the accuracy of their primitive-looking equipment. The gravitational anomaly nearly reached my resonance frequency. Had your captain not piloted as he did, I would have shattered. Dr. Kim nodded seriously. Let me try something. He walked to a cabinet and removed a device Tay didn't recognize. This is an ultrasonic molecular stabilizer. We use it for repairing microsplinters in our hull. The frequency should help your crystalline structure realign. Your equipment isn't calibrated for my physiology, Tay pointed out. Kim smiled. That's why I'm going to start at the lowest setting and work our way up. Just tell me when it feels right. To Tay's astonishment, the treatment worked. The vibrations sent through his structure found the perfect frequency on the 7th attempt, and he felt his damaged lattice beginning to repair itself more rapidly. Remarkable, he said. Our own medical facilities aren't this adaptable. Humans are pretty good at improvising, Kim replied, monitoring the readouts. When you explore space with limited resources, you learn to make do. After the treatment, Tay was escorted to the ship's mess hall. The concept itself was foreign to him. Crystallines took nutrients in their quarters, privately, but here, humans gathered together while consuming sustenance. The room fell quiet when he entered. 20 or so crew members stared at him with unconcealed curiosity. Tay felt suddenly out of place, his angular crystalline form a stark contrast to their soft biological bodies. Captain Han's voice broke the silence. Everyone, this is Commander Tay of the Crystalline Confederacy. He'll be our guest until we can arrange proper transport back to his people. A young crew member raised a hand. Sir, I thought the crystallines never left their territory. Before Han could answer, Tay stepped forward. I am a scout. My mission was to map the spatial anomalies. In this sector, he hesitated, then added, though I didn't expect to become stranded by one. Surprisingly, this comment drew laughter from the humans. The tension in the room dissolved instantly. Well, you picked a good place to get stranded, said Engineer Ju, approaching with a tray of food. Captain Han has a talent for being in the right place at the right time. Han shrugged modestly. Pure luck. The captain is being modest, said a gruff voice from the corner. An older human with facial hair stepped forward. Han once found a Zenturian escape pod floating in the void between systems. No distress beacon, no power signature. Just spotted it by eye during his watch. 6 survivors who'd been given up for dead. Tay absorbed this information with growing confusion. You regularly divert from mission parameters to attempt rescues? When needed, Han replied simply. He gestured to an empty seat. Please join us. We can't offer crystalline nutrients, but Dr. Kim synthesized something our scans suggest should be compatible with your system. Tay sat awkwardly on the human chair, acutely aware of the crew's continued glances. Ju placed a container of glowing blue liquid before him. It's a silicon-based nutrient suspension, she explained. Should help replenish your outer matrix. Tay inserted the feeding tube into his absorption port. The solution was surprisingly effective, better balanced than his emergency rations had been. As he consumed the nutrients, the conversation around him resumed. Humans discussed their duties, shared stories, and occasionally erupted into laughter. There was no apparent hierarchy to their seating arrangement. Officers and crew intermingled freely. May I ask a question? Tay said during a lull in conversation. Why do you gather like this to consume nutrients? Isn't it inefficient? A crew member named Park laughed. Eating isn't just about nutrition, Commander. It's social. We share meals, we share stories, we become stronger as a crew. But the time spent could be directed to other tasks, Tay noted. Captain Han leaned forward. Efficiency isn't always about maximizing every minute, Commander. Sometimes taking time to build connections makes everything else work better. Later, Tay was given a tour of the ship by Engineer Ju. The Persistence was smaller than Confederacy vessels, but somehow seemed to contain more. Every corridor told a story. Patches on walls where repairs had been made, personal items affixed. Near workstations, handwritten notes posted on doors. In engineering, Tay watched in amazement as humans argued passionately over how to repurpose parts from their own ship to construct a long-range communicator compatible with crystalline technology. "We can modify the subspace antenna," argued a technician named Yun, pointing at diagrams floating in the air. "And lose 40% of our own communication range," countered another engineer. "We need to build something new, using the spare. Parts from Shuttle 2. We need Shuttle 2 functional," Yun shot back. Tay interrupted their debate. "There's no need for this. When we reach the nearest outpost, I can arrange for transport." The engineers looked at him in surprise. Zhu explained, "We're not heading to an outpost, we're taking you home." "That would require entering crystalline space," Tay said, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly. "Your vessel would be intercepted and possibly destroyed." "Not if we can communicate properly with your people," Zhu replied. "That's why we're building this, and we're not leaving you at some random outpost where you might wait months for retrieval." The realization hit Tay with unexpected force. "You're altering your course, building new equipment, and risking confrontation with my people, all to ensure my safe return?" "So of course," Zhu said, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. That evening, alone in the guest quarters they had hastily adapted for his crystalline physiology, Tay recorded his observations about humans. Their behavior defied logical analysis. They expended precious resources without calculating return value. They altered missions based on emotional responses. They gathered when they should be working, argued when they should be executing orders, and laughed when they should be serious, and yet they had survived the void. More than survived, they thrived in it, pushing further into unknown space with their imperfect ships and their inefficient ways. When Captain Han checked on him before the night cycle, Tay finally asked the question that had been forming in his mind. "Why did you really come for me?" "The truth." Han considered this for a moment. "Because out here, in the darkness between stars, all we really have is each other. Today I helped you. Tomorrow, maybe you'll help someone else. Some things you do because they're the right thing to do, not because they make sense on paper." Long after Han left, Tai stood by the viewport, watching the stars streak by as the persistence carried him home. For the first time in his carefully ordered life, something inside him, something beyond his crystalline structure, was beginning to change. The alarm sounded 3 days into their journey toward crystalline space. Tai was in the observation deck, studying the strange artwork humans had created on the walls, hand-painted stars and planets, when the lights shifted to pulsing red and Captain Han's voice came through the ship-wide communication system, à la fois. "Hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, all hands to battle stations." Tay felt a strange sensation in his core, something akin to what humans might call dread. He moved quickly through the corridors, now filled with crew members rushing to their posts. The casual camaraderie of previous days had transformed into focused determination. He found Han on the bridge, standing before a large view screen showing a sleek geometric vessel rapidly approaching from behind. "Confederacy enforcement vessel," Tay said immediately, recognizing the distinctive diamond-shaped hull and the perfect symmetry of its design. "Stalwart class, heavily armed," Han nodded grimly. "They're hailing us. How did they find us so quickly?" "The gravitational anomaly," Tay realized. "It must have triggered automated alerts. They detected your ship entering the disturbance zone and followed the energy trail." Communications Officer Park called out, "They're demanding we heave to and prepare for boarding. They claim we've illegally salvaged Confederacy property and personnel." "Property?" Engineer Zhu had joined them on the bridge, her face flushed from running. "You're a person, not property." Tay's inner eyelids flickered. "In this context, I am considered Confederacy equipment. A scout's value is measured by the data they collect. My rescue would be seen as theft of that data." Han's jaw tightened. "Open a channel." When Park nodded, Han spoke clearly. "This is Captain Han of the Earth vessel Persistence. We answered a distress call and rescued Commander Tay from a damaged vessel. We are returning him to crystalline space as a courtesy." The response came immediately. in the perfect, measured tones typical of crystalline officials. Human vessel. Your actions constitute unauthorized salvage of Confederacy assets. Commander Tay was deemed non-recoverable by efficiency protocols. You will surrender him, and all data in his possession immediately. Tay stepped forward. Captain, you must comply. The Enforcer vessel carries weapons capable of disabling your ship. My people value logic above all else. They will not hesitate to use force. Han ignored him. Park, close the channel. Once the communication ended, Han turned to his crew. Options? The bridge erupted with suggestions, each crew member speaking freely despite the hierarchy Tai had observed in their duty assignments. We could outrun them, suggested Navigator Kang. The Persistence is faster at sublight speeds. Not fast enough, countered Ju. Their weapons have greater range than our engines have speed. What about the asteroid field ahead? Asked Pilot Sun, a small, quiet human who had barely spoken in Tay's presence before. I could navigate it. Their perfect geometric patterns make them predictable. They'll follow the mathematically optimal path through the field. And we won't, Han said, understanding immediately. Sun, set course for the densest part of the asteroid field. Ju, I need everything you can give the engines. Park, prepare a little surprise for our friends. Tay watched in disbelief. Captain, the asteroid density in that sector is too high. The statistical likelihood of collision— Never tell me the odds, Han interrupted with a smile that seemed entirely inappropriate for the situation. Commander Tay, if you were us, what would you do? The question caught Tay off guard. I would surrender me as requested. It is the logical course of action. That's not going to happen, Han said firmly. Your crew now. Tay felt something shift inside him, a strange warmth that had nothing to do with his thermal regulation systems. The Persistence surged forward, accelerating toward the massive asteroid field that stretched across the viewscreen. Behind them, the Confederacy vessel fired a warning shot, a precisely calculated energy burst that detonated exactly 200 meters off their port bow. They're faster than I expected, Han muttered. Sun, how close can you cut it? The pilots. Hands moved across the controls with remarkable precision. Close enough to paint their hull, Captain. Do it. What followed defied everything Tay understood about space combat. As they entered the asteroid field, Sun didn't follow any recognizable pattern. Instead of plotting the mathematically optimal course, the pilot seemed to choose the most dangerous path possible, weaving between massive rocks with mere meters to spare, occasionally skimming the surface of larger asteroids. The bridge shook violently as debris struck their shields. Warning lights flashed across control panels. Shields at 60%, called out the tactical officer. The Enforcer is still on our tail, Park reported, but they're maintaining a greater distance from the asteroids. Their course is exactly as Sun predicted. They're following the optimal path. Tay watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The crystalline vessel's movements were perfect, elegant, and entirely predictable. They were calculating each move based on efficiency algorithms, taking the safest route while maintaining pursuit. Now, Han ordered. Park activated a sequence, and the Persistence released something into their wake. Small objects, barely visible on the scanner. Mining charges, Han explained to Tay. Normally used for breaking up asteroids for raw materials. Today, they'll serve a different purpose. The charges detonated precisely as the crystalline vessel passed through their deployment area. The explosions weren't powerful enough to damage the superior ship directly, but they shattered several nearby asteroids, creating a chaotic debris field that the Enforcer couldn't possibly have calculated for. The view screen showed the crystalline vessel taking multiple impacts. Its perfect, symmetrical movement faltered. They're computing a new optimal path, Tay said, understanding his people's tactics, but it will take them precisely 27 seconds to complete the calculations, which is 26 seconds too long, Sun said, fingers flying across the controls. Hold on. The Persistence dove toward an impossibly narrow gap between two massive asteroids, then executed a maneuver that seemed to defy physics. The ship rolled sideways, engines burning hot, and slipped through the gap with centimeters to spare. Behind them, the Enforcer attempted to follow but was forced to take a wider, safer route. losing precious distance. "They're falling behind," Park announced triumphantly. "Don't celebrate yet," Han cautioned. "Son, head for the gas cloud at the edge of the field. We'll use it to mask our signature." For the next hour, the Persistence played a deadly game of hide-and-seek, using maneuvers no crystalline vessel would ever attempt. They scraped against asteroids, cut engines to drift silently, and at one point flew so close to a small planetoid that they used its gravity to slingshot themselves in an unexpected direction. Throughout it all, Tay watched in astonishment as the humans worked together, not with the cold efficiency of his people, but with a chaotic harmony that somehow achieved the impossible. When they finally emerged from the asteroid field, the Enforcer was nowhere to be seen on their scanners. "We did it," breathed Ju, her face gleaming with sweat and excitement. Sun slumped in the pilot's chair, exhausted but smiling. "Not exactly by the book." "The best flying rarely is," Han replied, clapping the pilot on the shoulder. He turned to Tay. "How does it feel to defy the odds, Commander?" Tay's crystalline structure seemed to shimmer slightly as he processed what he had witnessed. "Captain, I have served in the Confederacy Scout Corps for 12 cycles. I have mapped uncharted regions, encountered strange phenomena and faced dangerous situations, but never have I seen anything like what your crew just accomplished." Han smiled. "Humans have a saying, sometimes the shortest distance between 2 points isn't a straight line." As the Persistence set course for a small trading outpost to make repairs before continuing their journey, Tay found himself contemplating a new concept, that perhaps perfect calculation wasn't always the path to success. Sometimes the unpredictable, the chaotic, the human way might achieve what perfect logic could not. The trading outpost horizon floated like a misshapen snowflake against the backdrop of a brilliant orange nebula. Unlike the perfect symmetry of crystalline stations, Horizon was a hodgepodge of different architectural styles, each section built at different times by different species. The central hub was an ancient Vexillian transport vessel, long ago converted to a permanent structure. Around it, habitat rings and docking arms extended in a pattern that looked random but somehow worked. The Persistence limped into a docking bay, its hull scorched from asteroid impacts and one stabilizer barely functioning. As the airlock sealed with a hiss, Captain Han gathered the senior crew in the meeting room. Tay joined them, still processing the events of the past few days. "The repairs will take at least 48 hours, Engineer Ju reported, her fingers scrolling through damage reports on a tablet. "The port thruster housing is cracked, and we lost 3 shield generators in the asteroid field." Han nodded. "Make it happen, and keep a low profile. That Enforcer might still be looking for us." When the meeting ended, Han turned to Tai. "This is where we part ways, Commander. There's a Talarian merchant ship leaving for the borders of crystalline space tomorrow. I've arranged passage for you." Tay felt a strange sensation, something he couldn't quite identify. "You're not taking me to the Confederacy border." After that chase, "We'd be intercepted before we got within a light year," Han replied. "The Talarians are neutral. They can get you home safely." That evening, Tay wandered through the crowded corridors of Horizon. The station was alive with activity, traders haggling over prices, engineers working on ships, travelers from a dozen. Different species sharing meals and stories. It was chaotic, inefficient and strangely vibrant. He found himself at an observation deck watching ships come and go against the backdrop of the nebula. The beauty of it struck him in a way he hadn't experienced before. In crystalline space, nebulae were catalogued, analyzed for resource potential and then largely ignored. Here people gathered just to watch the swirling colors. Beautiful, isn't it? Tay turned to find Pilot Sun beside him, her small frame leaning against the railing. "Yes," he admitted, "though beauty is not a concept we typically apply to cosmic phenomena." Sun smiled. "What would you call it then?" Tay considered. "An efficient display of ionized gases and stellar remnants." "That sounds so lifeless," Sun said, her eyes reflecting the orange glow from outside. "Sometimes I think the universe created nebulae just to remind us to stop and look around." They stood in silence for a while, watching as a small transport ship glided into the nebula's edge, its running lights creating a trail of artificial stars. "I wanted to thank you," Tay said finally. Your piloting skills saved the ship. Saved me. Sun shrugged. Just doing my job. No, Tay insisted. It was more than that. You did something no crystalline pilot would have done. You chose the most dangerous path because it was the least predictable. Sometimes the crazy option is the best option, Sun replied with a smile. That's what makes humans good survivors. When Tai returned to the Persistence later that night, he found Captain Han in the cargo bay, supervising the unloading of damaged parts. Commander, Han greeted him, everything set for your departure tomorrow? Tai nodded. Yes. The Talarian captain seems trustworthy. Their trade agreements with the Confederacy should ensure safe passage. Han wiped his hands on a cloth. Good. I'll have your data crystal returned to you in the morning. Keep it, Tai said. The anomaly maps might help prevent other ships from becoming stranded as I was. Han studied him for a moment. That's generous. I thought that data was valuable to your people. It is. But I've learned that some things are more valuable than data. Later, alone in his quarters, Tai faced the hardest decision of his life. On his personal datapad, he began composing a message to the Crystalline High Command. After careful analysis of recent events, I must report a significant discovery. The human species, previously categorized as inefficient and unpredictable, possesses qualities that defy our understanding of advancement. Their seeming chaos contains patterns we cannot calculate. Their inefficiency sometimes yields results our perfect algorithms cannot match, and their willingness to value a single life above resource calculations may represent an evolutionary adaptation we have overlooked. He paused, crystal fingers hovering over the screen. What he was writing bordered on heresy among his people. To suggest that the crystalline path, the path of perfect logic and efficiency, might not be the pinnacle of evolution was unprecedented. Yet he continued, I request reassignment as cultural liaison to the human territories. There is much we can learn from them, just as they can benefit from our knowledge. The future of both our species may depend on such understanding. The next morning, as the crew gathered to see him off, Tai made his decision. Captain Han, he said formally, I wish to request permission to remain aboard the Persistence. The cargo bay fell silent. Han's eyebrows raised slightly. As a passenger? As a crew member, Tai clarified. My knowledge of spatial anomalies would be valuable to your missions, and I could serve as a liaison between humans and my people. Your people tried to capture us, Ju pointed out. They considered you expendable. Yes, Tai acknowledged, and that is precisely why I wish to stay. The Crystalline Confederacy has achieved technological perfection, but we have calculated ourselves into stagnation. Your chaos, your unpredictability, they create possibilities we cannot imagine. Han studied him for a long moment. You understand this means you're choosing exile? Your people might never accept you back. I understand, Tai said. But sometimes, the shortest distance between 2 points isn't a straight line. Han smiled at his own words being echoed back to him. Welcome aboard, then. We could use a science officer with your expertise. That evening, as the Persistence pulled away from Horizon, repaired and restocked, Tai sent his message to the Crystalline High Command. He had no way of knowing if they would understand his choice or condemn it. But for the first time in his life, the statistical probability of success wasn't his primary concern. From the observation deck, he watched as the ship accelerated to warp speed, the stars stretching into streaks of light. Beside him stood Engineer Ju, making final adjustments to his environmental controls. Having second thoughts? She asked. No, Tai replied, his crystalline form catching the light of 1,000 stars. For the first time, I'm not calculating the outcome. I'm just experiencing the journey, Ju smiled. That, Commander, is what makes you more human than you realize. As the Persistence vanished into the depths of space, carrying its improbable crew toward unknown adventures, Tai understood at last what Captain Han had meant. Some things you do not because they make sense on paper, but because they are right. And in that messy, illogical truth lay a wisdom his people had forgotten, a wisdom he was now free to explore among the stars, with his new human family. The end.